Dr. PAVLIDOU, we have an emergency.
Oh, what seems to be the situation?
It's one of our dyslexia spies.
Okay, let's go. Hello, Agent M. What seems to be the problem?
I cannot type in the password. Words don't come to me.
What do you think, Doctor?
I think our agent has a problem with implicit learning. I recommend an MRI and a daily dose of 10 minutes practice with SCOSW.
Huh?
A specific combination of syllables and words.
Tell it to me straight, Doc. When can I go back to work?
Well, what you just watched is a regular day at work for me. Agent M, who is diagnosed with developmental dyslexia, holds top secret computer files on how to achieve reading fluency. To protect those files from the hands of enemies, I hid in her brain a very complicated pattern that serves as a password that is not entirely available to her consciousness, but which she should have been able to use whenever she wanted to access those files. As crazy as it sounds, our brain can actually pick up complex regularities, structure, and pattern from its environment, and it can do that in a rather tacit, undirected, and unsupervised fashion. This process is called implicit statistical learning. Difficulties with this type of learning may explain some of the problems that children with dyslexia face. But let's take our story from its very beginning, right? What is so special about reading that makes it so challenging for Agent M? Well, reading is a fantastic example of how sophisticated and plastic our brain is. It is a fabulous combination of vision and language, but unlike spoken language, reading is not natural, but it's rather the byproduct of our culture. This means that it came much later on in our evolution history, and it called on brain areas that serve other functions, such as speech and memory. In a nutshell, reading is the act of mapping the sounds of our language, that is called phonemes, on the printed form, that is orthography. For a beginning reader to be able to do that successfully, they need to have in place what we call phonological awareness. That is an understanding that language has a sound structure and that these sounds can be broken down, manipulated, and mapped on their printed form in arbitrary ways. You're about to watch Henry, age 3, reading out his first word.
Peanut butter.
Well, no, sound it out, hun, just like you just did. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good. Can you do it faster so you can hear the word? Can you try it again?
Peanut butter.
Okay.
Well, he's the epitome of cuteness, isn't he? But let's forget for a moment how adorable Henry is, and let's focus on what he was actually doing. So he looked at the letters, he recognized them, he sounded out the phonemes that go with those letters, and then he put everything together to make up a word. He didn't want to do this again because at this point, this process is very laborious for him. But over time, exposure to print and practice, this process actually becomes extremely automatic. To prove my point, we will do a short experiment with all you guys. So I'm going to show you letters on the screen, and I want you to read them all together out loud as fast as you can, starting from left and going all the way to the right. Now. That's awesome. Congratulations. What you just did is called rapid automatized naming, RAN for short, and it's together with phonological awareness is one of the stronger predictors of later fluent and accurate reading. But so far, we talked about behavior. What's going on in the brain? Let's take a peek. So we learn because our neurons transmit information from one to the other, forming connections. That is, we call them pathways. These connections, the stronger they become, the more quicker the information is fired, and the more automatic learning becomes. But what happens if we take a peek in a brain of a beginning reader like Henry, what we get to see is that these pathways for reading are both located in the left and part of our brain, as well as the back and front. But over time, the more proficient Henry will become, this, as we call reading circuit, moves from the right towards mostly to the left, and from the front of the brain towards the back. The way we try to explain this is that the more proficient a reader becomes, the faster they recognize that this is a word that they're seeing. And so they're freeing up their frontal lobe, which is our thinking/decision-making part of the brain, to be devoted to other reading-related tasks, such as recognizing connections in the brain, connections in the task, or irony, let's say, in text. But what you and Henry can do very well, children with dyslexia cannot. Dyslexia is a neurobiological condition that is present when reading is arduous, and despite normal intelligence and adequate education, it is estimated that about 5 to 10% of children around the world are diagnosed with this condition across all languages and orthographic systems. The cardinal marker of developmental dyslexia is poor phonological awareness and poor RAN together, which together actually produce error-prone and arduous reading. If we take a peek in a brain of dyslexic organization now, what we see is that this reading circuit has connections that are much weaker and more noisy, which means they're more prone to interference from whatever is going on to the brain at the same time. We do know, however, that with extensive treatment and appropriate intervention, those connections can become stronger and less noisy, but they do not become automatic. I think that problems with implicit learning might explain why we don't reach this automaticity. Because reading is a highly complex environment where all sorts of structure exists. So how do I study? I train children in visual, auditory, and tactile complex patterns, and I measure how well they learn those complicated patterns. But I also look at the brain. So I look at its function, which areas are actually activated during those tasks, but also its structure. That is, how fibers are connected to each other to help to facilitate or not this learning. But let's hear what Agent M liked the most.
I'd say the MRI was the funnest. Yeah, the MRI.
Why did you like it that much?
Well, because it was really fun going in the big machine and then doing tasks and talking to you through the headphones with the microphone, and the big thing over me doing tasks and watching Ice Age for about 15 minutes.
Oh, that's a plus, huh? Okay, wonderful. So thank you for having us take a peek in your lovely brain. Being Greek, I couldn't resist that. So I will quote my co-patriot Aristoteles, who said that he who considers things in their first growth and origin will obtain their clearest view. Macy, Henry,
and Luca that you saw very last. I'm sure they will help me get a very clear view of what's going on. Thank you for listening.